And welcome to another episode of Get to Know World of Warships. And I'm here with my guest co-host, Popcorn.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, I can't quite put my finger on it, but something just feels different.
Different how?
I don't know. It's just like we're at episode, we're in the 80s. And I remember starting this podcast. And then I had this dream where I was gone for like 40 episodes. I quit World of Warships. I quit being active in the clan. I quit leading one. And I just woke up today. I'm like, oh, time to do a podcast episode. And I don't know, it just feels really weird. And I don't know, it's also something about you. It feels odd. Do you get any of this or is it just in my head?
Well, you know me, Synpax. I love the podcast. I've listened to every single one. If there's a universe where you've been gone for like 40 of them, I would want to live in that one.
Yeah, and I wouldn't want to live in one where you're not my trusty sidekick for all of them. It's just because we have this great chemistry. I mean, we've done so many great episodes together. I don't know.
You're right.
I'm confused about the timelines. Hey, want me to tell you, we've got some really great segments for this podcast. You are not going to believe. It's unbelievable. You want to hear about these awesome segments?
I really, really do, and I hope everyone listening does too.
Get this. We found a guy who has played, not botted, not shared his account, but personally played 62,000 co-op battles.
Willingly?
I know, that's what I thought too. Yes, he willingly, personally sat there and has played 62,000 co-op battles, and we got a great interview with him that we'll be rolling out in one segment. We also have one of the great games of the player, great players of the game, Bison, talking to us about how to play one of the big dogs of the game. I consider it a dog, not a great ship. The Hayate. Do you have a Hayate, Popcorn?
I do not. It's one I really wanted, though.
Well, why do you want it?
I like DDs, and it's just a weird DD to have. You know, it's got the guns, but it's on a Shima, and I really hate the Shima, but I love guns, so we'll just see how that works out. You
will like this segment because we go into detail about how to make, which is widely considered probably one of the worst premiums at tier 10, along with a couple others. And not only do we talk about that, we basically do a tier ranking of all the tier 10 premiums in the game. And Bison's probably one of the best players of the game. His name is atop many ships leaderboards, deep purple, and I think he's one of the best crazy good players of a ship, which many people regret dropping several million free XP to get, including kind of me. I hate to say it, but the way he talked about the ship and explains how to play it, maybe I'm going to give another shot. And a new segment on the show, Weird Premiums, where we take a weird premium, one that's not played very often, not at tier 9 or tier 10 or anything competitive, out of our hats. We just pull the name out of the hat, and we bring in somebody who's particularly good at playing that ship to talk to us about it a little bit, and maybe we dust it off and take it out into the random battles. And joining us for that will be 07's very own Locked, aka Heavy question marks, talking about the hood and its history a little bit too. So are you excited for this new episode, Popcorn?
I'm very excited. Can't wait to get started.
Awesome, man. All right, we'll kick it off. And again, thanks to our audience for listening. And we'll talk to you in about 3 seconds with our next segment.
Let's do it.
Hey, this is Synpax, and I am here with a very unusual guest. We've never had anybody in the history of the podcast who I think is anything like or has accomplished anything like what this individual has done. And I really can't wrap my mind around it. When I saw I saw the statistics about this player. I had a hard time believing it was real, that he was real. But in fact, he is a real, living, breathing person. We're going to get to know him. His name is Artie59. Artie, how are you doing today?
Good, sir. And yourself?
Oh, I'm grand. Just before I tell the people here, they'll know because of the subject line, because they heard the intro, kind of what you're here for. But just tell us a little bit about yourself, like in real life. I mean, where do you live? Do you work? How old you are? What, that kind of stuff. So a little biographical info.
All right. I've retired right at the age of 59. I'm 62 now. I recently moved from Phoenix, Arizona to Florida. So I've only been here for about 2 months.
Okay. What did you do prior to retiring?
I worked for a company called Cox Communications. I ran contract labor for the Cox business side for the last 10 years I was there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And, I'm very familiar with Cox. I think I've had service from them from one point or another, cable and, I think they do TV, internet and telephone, all that stuff. So, all right, my friend, how do you play nearly 62,000 co-op battles? How do you do that?
I don't sleep well, so I had a heart attack back in 2004, and I only sleep about 3-4 hours a night. So when I get up at midnight, 1 o'clock, I sit here and do it till about 10 o'clock in the morning. So,
why do you play co-op instead of and you do play the other game modes? You have in random battles, you have 7,500 battles, and statistically, you're a better than average player. So you're pretty strong. Why would you play co-op instead of random?
Kind of personalities. I don't care for I think one of the best ways I ever heard it called was the saltiness and random.
Really? So, but I mean, look, even random battles can get a little bit boring. And, so that pushes people to play ranked and competitiveness. And look, I want to let the listeners know is that when you play co-op, you play. Like, is a lot of people, let's say, like, I'm not going to name people, but let's say maybe a guy named Synpax, he's got to get his silly little snowflakes blown off so he can get all the steel. So maybe he just autopilots into the middle of a cap or something, and while he's drinking his morning diet soda, and come what may and whatever. But you really play because your statistics show that you do a lot of damage. You do above average damage, above average win rate, above average personal rate. So you really do play these co-op games like seriously. Right?
Correct, sir. I don't see any reason not to go in there and not help your teammates. Even if I'm the only one in there, sometimes you're the only one and the rest of them are bots, but you're still there to win. So,
sure. Now, but how do you not get bored with it? Because it's not. I mean, it's quite easy to play against bots, right? So how do you not get bored out of your mind playing the same, basically, low intelligence bots over and over again?
No, that's not always true. Sometimes you might be two players on one side of the map, like the 2-3 line, and you start going up it. Well, there might be 5 of them coming at you. So you have a pretty good battle sometimes with them. They're here recently, the last month or so, their aim's been off. I don't know why they did that, but they do get a little tough sometimes.
I was going to actually ask you about that at some point, because it was brought to my attention that recently, for some reason, Wargaming dumbed down the aiming of enemy bots. And I'm not sure, are you, it sounds like you're not really a fan of that you would like challenging bots, correct?
Correct. That's a little difference between co-op and random. Co-op, it's kind of like go in and kick each other in the hiney, and random's more of a sneak and what would you call it? Sneak and ambush, I guess, would be more of the way you would say it.
So you, I'm looking here. You have played in co-op almost 1,900 battles in the Yamato. Is that your favorite ship?
It's right up there. I like battleships, and probably the German lines is one of my favorite lines. As far as
Why is that?
they're just a good rounded ship. They take damage well. The secondaries, a lot of people complain about the secondaries. I like the secondaries on them. They deal some good amount of damage. They're just a good all around ship.
So I guess so it's fair to say that you have more experience than anybody in the world playing co-op in this game. What advice would you have to World of Warship developers on how to improve it? Because they do listen to this podcast, and actually I know for a fact they do, not just here in the US, but all the way in St. Petersburg or wherever else they do development. What advice would you share with them on ways to improve co-op to make it more engaging?
One thing I would like to see is some different maps. We haven't had a new map in God knows how long, and that's a random also. I would like to see them step up the bots, be a little more, their aim to be a little bit better. And I don't want to, there was a time that they would citadel you almost every shot, and that went on for a couple of weeks. I know they turned that down at one time, but when their shots are real bad, it's not as much fun.
Well, I hope that they hear that, and I know that there's been some discussion on the forums because it has become quite controversial. Because you're not alone. I mean, there are a lot of people who are, I think you could call them co-op mains, who have experienced what you have in that recent change, and also are disappointed in it because it shortens the length of the games. It's not as meaningful or fun. So I certainly would join my voice to yours in encouraging them. In fact, one thing I did bring up was the idea of being able to choose a difficulty level for co-op, and with a higher difficulty level, you get more XP and more credit. So you could play like super easy co-op, but you could also play like killer co-op. What would you think of that idea?
Don't they do that in operations? You can choose a level.
I thought they could. I thought you could at one point. I'm also, I'm a little unfamiliar with that option. I think maybe it's random for operations, but if they brought that to co-op, would that be something you would be interested in taking advantage of?
Oh yeah, that just helps your skill level. If you could play that at one time or another, some tougher bots.
Do you play a lot of operations as well?
No, but there's a clan that we all used to be. Can I say the clan name?
You can say, sure.
All right, we all used to be part of FAC, and most of those guys are down in Australia, and they broke off, and they still invite me a lot of times, and they like to play a lot of operations. So when they do that, I play operations with them. It's Reds, REDZ.
Okay, cool. And you're currently a member of a clan, the Davy Jones Locker. They do seem to participate in clan battles. Do you participate with them?
No, I did in the early days, but they're hard to get going, and I don't like sitting in port for an hour and a half trying to get 6 players together to play a clan battle. So I kind of shied away from it at this point.
Yeah, well, perhaps the new rules on mercenaries might make it a little bit easier for them to get some battles in. But it looks like they were somewhat active, at least this season. Got a core group of people, so they're almost at like around 30 battles for the season or so. Very good. I guess I got to get back to the question of like boredom. Have you have you lost any enthusiasm to get up in the middle of the night and play World of Warships? Just because there's some variance there, but it's got to be incredibly repetitive to you. Is there have you started to taper down your gameplay, or is it just humming along as usual, the same volume?
I would say since I moved, it's tapered down. Like I said, I've been in Florida now for about 2 months, and I got a lot of stuff I got to do to my house and stuff, so that slowed it down some. But I don't know. My goal is to get oil for the clan, so I always make sure I get all my crates and stuff together. And then they got these other missions where you can get crates for completing so much XP or whatever. So I'm always chugging away at that stuff.
Okay, yeah, I can appreciate your support for your clan and wanting to get the oil for them. But as you know, the XP in those co-op games isn't nearly what it is in the other game modes. So you have to, I guess, grind away quite a few games to get your 3 crates for the day. So one of the segments we have on this show, originated by my good friend Bogsy, is Sync a Ship, where say you had developer tier god powers, you could remove one ship from the game, just delete it. What ship would you sink?
Probably the Moskva.
The Moskva. I don't think we've ever heard that. Now, its close cousin Stalingrad is a common request, but why would you sink the Moskva?
Well, they came out with that early on, and I remember they were saying it's got tier 9 guns on a tier 6 ship. That wasn't a Moskva. God, what was the name of that ship? It's a Russian one. It's tier 6. But I'd get rid of that one.
Oh, Russian ship at tier 6. So let's see if we can figure that one out for you. I'll pull up my little chart here because we don't want to inadvertently sink the wrong ship here.
Yeah.
So tier 6 Russian ships. Well, it wouldn't be the Molotov. I'm actually going right to my port right now so we can find the name of it because I have pretty much all the ships.
I think that is it.
The Molotov. Molotov has fairly small guns. So tier 6 Russian.
Yeah, but that's how Wargaming sold it in the beginning when they were saying that they had tier 9 guns at a tier 6
actually,
level.
You know what? Molotov has 180s. Yeah, so that is those are pretty big caliber. So yeah, do you have that ship yourself?
Yeah, I still got it. I paid money for that, but I learned real quick that thing was a floating piece of glass.
It is indeed. Big guns, but a glass job. All right. Well, look, I just want to, again, thank you for coming on our podcast. Maybe we'll have you back on when you hit 100,000 co-op battles. Eh?
Okay, that'll work.
Well, look, I just, again, we want to make sure people know that you're not using a bot. Nobody else is playing your account. It's you there every single time playing those 62,000 co-op battles.
Yes, sir.
Well, look, I hope I run into you sometime when I'm blowing off snowflakes. Good luck to you, and we appreciate you coming on the show.
Look at it, sir. Thank you for having me.
So, welcome to a segment that we originated way back when I was originally doing my original run on the podcast, where we basically take a ship that's kind of challenging and we bring in the absolute best player of that ship and they give advice on how to make it sink, how to make a dog bark. And in the last episode that I did with my co-hosts, I guess at the time, or with Bogsy and Borla, we did the Bogsy's favorite game, the Sink a Ship, and I, out of sort of frustration after trying to make a run with it in ranked, picked the Hayate. Now, that's not a ship that a lot of people have. It's a free XP ship. You don't buy it for steel or coal. You got to drop, I guess it was maybe 2 million or so free XP to buy it. And what I found is that my take on it at this point in time, which may change after we're finished talking to the expert, maybe yours will too, is that it's basically, it does not have any strengths. Because typically you have a ship where it has something that's very good about it, but that's offset by a weakness, or a great weakness is offset by something that is very good. And that's a common way of building variety into the game. Like a ship has very weak guns. Well, it's got great concealment. A ship doesn't have speed boost. Well, it has hydro. Some things to trade it off. But just let me run through the Hayate for you. And I'm just going to compare it to sort of the old standard gearing. So we'll look at the ways that it is worse than the gearing and see if that's offset by any way that it's better. So compared to the gearing, it has close to the same amount of optimal hit points. Actually less, and I'll get to that in a moment. It's slightly faster, but has worse maneuverability. It has much worse detection, especially considering the unique upgrade for the gearing. Its guns are basically about the same, except the turrets don't turn as fast. The alpha damage on the Hayate is a little bit higher, but that's more than offset by higher DPM. So it's, alpha strike is great for, I think, maybe battleships or torpedoes, but for destroyers, I guess that one good bite out of you, and then you're saturated and it loses the DPM fight. I guess it has slightly higher fire chance with this HE, but it's totally negligible. AP, again, same alpha strike roughly as the gearing, but lose the DPM for as often as you use AP in a destroyer with 127 millimeter guns. Guns are same penetration, about the same accuracy, slightly faster guns. You don't have Russian arcs, but it's just slightly faster. But again, the DPM so low, it's not got super range. It's not one where you want to take super extended range like you would on Grozovoy or Khabarovsk, one of the other Russian ships. Then you look at AA. Its AA is just horrible. Its optimal AA is about half what the gearings is. Now, then you get to the torpedoes. So these torpedoes you have one option for torpedoes, 12 kilometers, about the same in terms of speed compared to the gearing, much worse range than 65, much worse detectability, much worse detection time. 8 seconds or 7.9 seconds for gearing is your reaction time. 9.4 for Hayate. They basically have the detectability of the Shimakaze. Much worse reload time. Now, it is true that they have a higher strike power. Like it's 24K. That's a big bite versus that gearing's 18K. But DPM wise, they're exactly the same. Slightly higher flood chance. And we look at a few other things. It has worse smoke than the gearing. It doesn't have the option to load defensive fire. Otherwise, it's about the same. Although you can substitute torpedo reload booster, which takes 240 seconds to reload, which I believe is slower than some of the other reload times of that particular consumable. So when I look at these two ships right next together, the old standard gearing versus Hayate, all I see are like some very negligible advantages for the Hayate, and very negligible advantages, for the Hayate over the gearing, and some really big drawbacks, namely in DPM, detection, the smoke isn't as good, no option for defensive fire, worse AA, forget about defensive fire, all that stuff. Okay, that being said, I am here with somebody who's going to tell me why I am completely wrong and don't know what I'm talking about. And I completely concede the point because he is a much better player than me. Before I tell you his name, he is on the number one on the leaderboard, and I believe this holds internationally, but at least for North America, of a solo win rate of 62.2%. I want to say that again, a solo win rate by himself of 62.2% in the ship over. He didn't get lucky over 30 or 40, but 82 battles. That is statistically significant. An average damage of 104,000 which means that half of those 82 games, he did way more than 103. And he maybe, had the one or two game where he just, the CV said, oh, I recognize you. I know that clan tag. Even if I don't know your name, I'm just going to make your life miserable. So he had those games, but then on top of that, probably monster games, a max damage of 221K. I'd like you to welcome, I think he may have been on the show, our very good friend of the podcast, Bison, formerly of 07 and now of RIDF2. Did I get all that right, Bison?
Except the 07 part. I was never in 07.
Okay.
I've always been in, well, people call it Gaishu's Clan. We call it Yikes because that was the original name. But everyone pretty much knows it as Gaishu's Clan.
Well, they know it as Gaishu's Clan because when you have a clan leader who repeatedly, for the lulz, changes the name of the clan, it can't be known by no other thing than by who is also a very good fan, a very good friend of the podcast. Forgive me for the 07. This is the part where I say I'm going to edit it later, but I'm actually not. I'm just too lazy. So he was not an 07. But the thing is, you're such a phenomenal player. You're either in Gaishu or you're in 07. And I'm sure whichever clan you happen to be in is just lucky to have somebody of your skill. So tell me why I don't know what I'm talking about Hayate, and I completely, you're not going to get any argument from me.
Okay, so I was super excited to come on the podcast and talk about Hayate because I actually get, when I stream, questions all the time about, what ship should I buy? Should I use my free XP on this ship or that? And Hayate gets brought up a lot, and people are like, oh, it's so bad. It's like the worst ship in the game. And I'm like, actually, you're talking to the number one Hayate here. Kind of like a joke. I mean, let me just start off and say that there's some guys out there, like the really, really turbo random farmers who, if they actually probably played Hayate, they could get better stats, but nobody has at this point. So I guess it's a moot point. But I remember when Hayate was announced and the stats were thrown out, and I ran the numbers in one of the stats websites, and I was like, you can get basically the same reload as a Grozavoy, but with higher HE alpha. And you get less range, and you don't get a heal, and you don't get defensive AA, which sucks. So, the Grozavoy is definitely better in my opinion, but the way that I've always viewed the Hayate and the way that I build it is like a Japanese Grozavoy. I don't take concealment because the concealment is, even with concealment experts, like 6-1, which is just not that good. Like, I have the DPM charts up here of the different destroyers, and it's better than the Grozavoy. It's about the same as the Kaba, less than your Darings, your Harugumos and stuff like that, but it's sort of like upper middle class in DPM.
Can I jump in for a second though, because I'm going to push back on some things. Okay. Yes, another great, if you're looking for a straight up basic a straight up basic destroyer tier 10 gearing, that's who I went to. But you could also have gone to Grozavoy. But you're bringing up Grozavoy and saying, well, higher DPM than Grozavoy, right?
Yes.
But the Grozavoy, first of all, it has slightly larger, higher caliber guns. It's 130s, right? Right?
Let me see.
Yeah, but okay, but
yeah.
But apart from that, because I'm not sure if that buys you anything that the 128s don't, but apart from that, the velocity of the shells means that you will, with a Grozavoy, land probably quite a few more of them, because the Hayate, not as floaty as the gearing, are in fact more floaty. And that also means that when you're aiming at a target, especially at the limit of the range, especially if it's somewhat like a heavy cruiser, whereas with the Grozavoy, because of the velocity of the shells, you're actually able to hit superstructure at a not as much of a declining angle, because you can actually aim at it and hit it. With the Hayate at that similar ranges, the shells are actually going to be more descending at a steeper angle, I guess would be the way to describe it. So they're more likely to be hitting, say, the deck, which they're less likely to pen than the superstructure where the Grozavoy can not only even aiming another destroyer at a certain range is just going to land more shells to make up for the lack of DPM, but on say those cruisers or even battleships, which particularly you can land more shots consistently on the super versus the Hayate, who at that same range, even perfectly aimed, will still have an angle of fire that has many of them expiring shattered on the deck.
Well, the Grozavoy definitely has the better arcs for sure. I mean, that's one of the main draws of the Grozavoy is the arcs. But the arcs on the Hayate are honestly not that bad. Like they're not Grozavoy arcs, but they're not gearing arcs. They're somewhere in the middle. And your max range with AFT is 13.9, I believe. Yeah, 13.9. Whereas the Grozavoy is 14.8. So you're not as far away. And one of the things that's really good about the Hayate for being like an open water kiting gunboat is the turret setup. So like the Shima, it has 2 turrets in the back, which is actually really underrated. That's one of the reasons why like a well-played Shima can actually hold its own in a lot of gunfights because it's really strong at kiting with the 2 guns in the back. And the reason why I think the Hayate gives you something else that the Grozavoy doesn't. Well, I guess one thing is as 1% higher fire chance. I mean, it's not huge, but it is something. Is the torpedoes. I don't run TRB on it because you can get a lot of damage from smoking up and farming. But you basically have 12 km Shimakaze torpedoes. So whereas with the Grozavoy, the torpedoes are more or less an afterthought. If you can land just a couple torpedoes in the Hayate, that's going to take like a decent to good game to like a great or a crazy game. And that's, to me, what separates the Hayate from perhaps all the other like gunboat type destroyers in the game, is that option to use the Shimakaze torpedoes.
So that actually brings up an interesting perspective on the ship because, in the world of purple stat farming, min-maxers, the dichotomy among destroyers, and it's even built into them this way, is a destroyer is either a gunboat or it's a torpedo boat, and you build it accordingly. And you get a Haragumo, a Daring, you're going to give it a gunboat build. You get, it's just built around it. And there's rarely, maybe never, a case where you would play that ship and say, oh, I'm going to do something contrary to that. People joke about gunboat Shima. But most of the time you're taking a Shima or a Summers, you're going to give it a stealthy torpedo build that's optimal at spotting, maybe smoking out allies, but just really built around taking stuff out with those torpedoes or zoning them out, especially in a competitive environment. And the thing is about hybrids is, they say the old chestnut is that there's nothing in the middle of the road except roadkill and stripes. The hybrid thing, you're basically saying I'm not going to min-max. I'm going to sort of make it do both things, but not as well as any other ship will. But you're saying, if I'm reading it right, is that hybrid kind of works, but is your build leaning more, or hybrid works for this ship, but are you leaning towards more of a gunboat build, or do you sacrifice anything to enhance the torpedoes?
No, it's full gunboat build.
Like not even concealment.
Like, no concealment. Nothing. Full gunboat build. It's just you have the torps, and they're 12 kilometers, and the reload time is really bad. But like I said, they do almost 24,000 alpha. So if you hit just 1 or 2 a game, like that's massive. That's a massive increase in damage.
Especially, and you can basically kill many destroyers with 1 torp. So 1 corp.
Yeah. If you hit him in the midship, unless it's like a Elbing or a Ragnar, I guess you're probably one-shotting it.
Yeah, or otherwise like crippling it badly for the rest of the game. Okay, so look, I'm just looking at my Hayate here. Now, if you sacrifice detectability, and let's say you do take the upgrade for detectability, that gets it to 6-8. Now, with the captain skill, it's 6-1, which not winning any concealment battles, but 6-1 is you can edge yourself in and out, really sort of play around that. But once you go up 6-8, which is how you play it, some of the destroyer roles that a destroyer typically plays become a little bit more challenging. So how are you playing this thing, especially if you're bringing it into the randoms, which is where you've achieved when your win rate is higher than 55%, especially solo, you're having a big impact. Yours is like 62. So how are you playing this thing in a typical, random battle?
So this doesn't just apply to Hayate. It kind of applies to all like open water gunboats, in that I actually find I have more success solo running like non-conceal and just avoiding the cap at the start, getting wide, spotting, and shooting at stuff. Because if you're contesting a cap, right? Well, first off, there's so many anti-destroyer DDs in the game now. You got Smalin and Ragnar and ships like that. Like nothing is going to win in a fight against those except another Smalin or another Ragnar. So there's no point in contesting that. And caps are sort of just, obviously sometimes your team gets triple capped and you bleed points and auto lose, but a lot of the times it's much more important to get early kills, inflict a lot of damage, zone the team out, particularly is what like open water gunboat can do. And then you could take the cap later. Like I said, the DPM on the Hayate is not that impressive. And it's the same way I played the Grozavoy, in that you don't want to take knife fights with other destroyers because you're going to get beat by, I mean, you even have, less DPM than like a gearing, slightly less. So you don't want to be taking knife fights with a ship like that. But if you can fight them at range or wait for your radar cruisers to come up and radar them and do it that way, I find that it gives a lot more success than just like contesting caps. Because, right. Yeah.
So it sounds like your approach to this is not terribly different. For those who follow another rather legendary player, Dolphin Princess, probably the most vocal advocate of the Grozavoy, and I don't recall whether or not he takes concealment or not. I expect that he doesn't. Yeah, I wouldn't expect it. That you're sort of in that same type of gameplay. Although, I mean, you are, given that you can't spot anything in smoke, and that even the destroyers that can kick your butt will outspot you. And if they're, I mean, in theory, they could just spot you and not blow their own concealment and just have their teammates push you away, and then kind of screw you. I'm just taking the cap, and you can't do anything about it unless you land a lucky torp. So what do you do in that situation?
So, like, if I have to fight another destroyer, the reason why not having concealment, I think, is actually a benefit, is because, again, same as the Grozavoy, but for slightly different reasons. The Grozavoy does not have great DPM, so you don't want to be knife fighting. You want to use your arcs to fight them at range.
Right.
The Hayate has like middling, or I guess maybe above average DPM. So you want to be kiting them because you can use your two back guns.
Right, but I get it. No, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. But I'm just telling, let's just say you're in random and you're not playing against, your super casual player. And the destroyer just backs into you, and it's a Smalin or even a Gearing or Shima or something with like a 5.8. And you're sitting there at 6.8. He doesn't open his guns. He just lights you and lets his team, push you back. And he just, if he's has some good map awareness, like you're just, unless you have like you play solo, but if you've got some maybe radar backup to help you out, or another destroyer there to counter to spot him or something like that, it just mano a mano in around a cap, whether you're trying to go for kills or capping it, how are you not screwed by a smart destroyer player on the other team that's a little bit more stealthy than you? Or do you just go to somewhere else on the map and say, well, we'll win it over here, right? Well, if fine, I can't beat this guy, I'm going to go over the map where they've got a bunch of potatoes over there and just nuke them, and then we have a ship advantage, come back here and clean it up. Is it just purely a strategic thing? It's not really a ship thing. It just becomes basic player strategy, right?
If I've got like a Shimakaze who's just shadowing me, then I'm just going to reposition. And if he's just shadowing me, that means he's not torping my teammates and doing other stuff. So, his usefulness is kind of minimal. I'm just going to reposition. I'll probably be farming, a battleship or something on the way. And
what I'm getting at here, though, is that the solution here that you're hitting at has nothing to do with using the strengths of the ship. It's just smart destroyer play, which if you're smart enough, and if you're a good player, even in a crummy ship, right, you can still kick butt because you're just that smart, that skilled, that better player, all that better map awareness, better aim, et cetera, et cetera. But what you're saying is that the ship really doesn't have a way to deal with that, and that's fine. That's fine. You just have to find a different place on the map where you can make a difference and go there. I guess that's the bottom line. It's in the same way you optimize the build of the ship to be strong, you optimize the position of the ship in a given game as that game evolves to make it. Anyway, well, it's
pretty much.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
One more thing I think I would add is, and I think you could tie this into the ship itself, is the Hayate has like the reputation of being really bad. So people just will take gunfights with you usually that are beneficial because you're not really scaring people with the Hayate, right? Like no one's like, oh my god.
The problem, Bison, is that you're sharing this on the most listened to podcast for World of Warships in the entire world. So I think you just surrendered your advantage. Now everyone knows the secret. I'm kidding. That is actually an interesting 4D chess move. Consideration is that while everyone assumes that this is a weak ship, they're not going to expect like a super gun build that invites a fight somewhere around concealment range and a kiting because that's another thing too. When you look like a raw DPM chart, that does not account in any way for configuration of the turrets. Where there's a big difference between a ship that can kite and has its turrets optimized to that because we know because of shell velocity and the way ships are, you're always in a better position to gun kite if you're the one that's running away rather than the one that's chasing, all kinds of reasons. So it's hard to account for that at a DPM ship. So that's a really good point that you brought up that I was completely unaware of.
You did bring it up, but it does, along with the Shimakaze, have the best HE alpha. So that's taken into account in DPM, but for example, like if you're hitting the first shot, that can drastically change the engagement, right? Just having that extra alpha, even if the DPM isn't quite as good as another ship, can end up making a substantial difference.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. That's a good point because. It's also useful in that, let's say there's a ship that is relatively low. If you can fire with one salvo, all you need to take him out and not the second salvo, that's sooner that you can get back into concealment. Because if you have to take those two salvos, that's a lot more time the enemy has to shoot at you, right? So if it's just a matter of getting that, if another ship would take two salvos, maybe you don't survive you're losing your concealment for the two salvos. Or you know what I'm saying? We're really angels on the hair of a pin here, but this is a game of inches, right? So let's talk ship builds. Let's start with upgrades. I wonder if you're going to say anything here to surprise me. Actually, you might, because I've got mine in front of me. Let's start. Slot 1 is MAM 1, right?
Yep.
Slot 2, engine boost, right?
Speed boost mod, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now this is the interesting one. What goes into slot 3 on your Grozoi style Hayate?
Dispersion. I mean, I think you could go Torps if you wanted to, because Destroyer Dispersion's pretty good anyway. But since it's primarily gun focused, I take the aiming systems mod one.
You can definitely notice it, and like how many. If you're building it for guns, and I think it was Flamu who made this point originally to me, is that, or maybe it was BFK. I can't remember. Is that because guns are a more reliable form of damage for you, optimizing, say, that mod over, say, what is a relatively slight advantage from the torpedo mod, where you can go in a game and do great but never land a torpedo. But when you're relying on the guns, a couple of extra shells, along with the it actually does help the torpedo traverse speed too. But anyway, I get it. Slot 3, what, prop mod?
Prop mod, yeah.
Yep. Then concealment mod, because we're not crazy here, right?
No, you don't. Yeah, I go concealment. You don't need rudder. The main a lot of people who go double rudder and whatnot, they don't realize that the main limiting factor on ships turning is not the rudder shift, it's the turning circle. So I mean, Hayate is 4.6 rudder shift without anything, but a 750 meter turning circle, so you're not getting anything out of rudder shift. So yeah,
which is bad. So 6 slot.
Gun reload.
Okay, all right. That's no real surprises there, to be honest with you. It's given your build. Let's go to captain skills. The ever-changing captain skills. What do we got?
Yes. Preventative maintenance. I honestly don't know how much that skill actually works. I seem to always get stuff blown up, but last stand, survivability expert, adrenaline rush, BFT, fearless brawler, AFT, and then the last point is incoming fire alert, IFA.
Okay, just because it went so quickly, I'm actually going to redistribute a captain and do that one again myself so I can comment. Okay. So let's go. Number 1 was preventive maintenance, then last stand, then survivability expert, and then fearless brawler, adrenaline rush.
Yep.
What?
AFT.
AFT. Okay. Yeah. And it's main battery.
Main battery, AA and AA. Yeah, I still call it AFT.
Yeah. BFT and AFT. Got it. Okay, and that leaves you with 1 point, and that's
IFA.
Okay. The thing is, man, don't you put IFA over grease the gears? Because aren't these turrets just a little shimikaze-ish?
No, they're 11.5 turret traverse.
Okay, I guess for some reason I have in my head that it was slow, but if it's not, because Shima does have kind of crummy turret traverse, if I recall.
Shima traverse is terrible.
Yeah.
11.5. Let's see what I don't know what that's equivalent to.
Yamato.
No, I think maybe. Where's my Grozafly? 11.5 is very usable.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like the same as the Grozavoy. Grozavoy's 10.8, so. Yeah,
and I mean, if you're mostly working back in, I think that that you don't need to. The guns don't have to move quite as much given the configuration. Now, no. I guess that all makes sense. That is a true gunboat. You are a fan of Last Stand. Some play without it. I think if I was building this, just because I'm such a I really use this skill a lot, is priority target. I actually might sacrifice Last Stand for it. But otherwise, it looks like a really, really solid build. So yeah, no, and you definitely take Last Stand over Demo Expert. Actually,
it's funny you say that. It's funny you say that because I'm a huge priority target fan too, and people now that I think about it, I would actually potentially drop BFT for PT, because the 5% BFT is so small now. The PT is so effective that I would actually think about changing it for that.
Well, then you get another point, which you can throw on Liquidator, or you could actually take another 2-point skill like Demo Expert.
Yeah, I would probably go Demo Expert, I think.
Okay, so just for those listening at home, 1 point is Preventive Maintenance. This is the alt build. Then Demo Expert, Priority Target, Last Stand. Skill 3 skill is AR and Survivability Expert. Then 4th is Main Battery, I guess AFT, and Fearless Brawler. And I kind of forgot to make this point when I was comparing it to the gearing, but I could be mistaken because I'm not as into the game as I used to be. But one of the other advantages that the gearing and many of the other ships have is that they have special captains, especially when you're sort of an elite deep purple super duper hurricane, COTS player. You got these special captains with extra skills. I believe that while like the Soviet line has like 5 or like 10, if you include all the Ovechkins, with skills that really do help destroyers. For example, Survivability Expert plus 50, that's great for destroyers, or some of these other skills that really help either in randoms or whatever. There's only one special IJN captain, and that's Yamamoto, and I don't know that any of his skills really help on a destroyer. I mean, the talents when they lock, yeah, great, you get a crack and you get, you turn into a miracle ship, but how often does that happen? So that's another disadvantage of the IJN line, is that you don't get a really good captain like you do all the others, and that's what you end up facing, at least at the top end, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a bummer, because I mean, so you can get the first blood, because I used Yamamoto on him. You can get the first blood pretty often for the extra smoke, which is nice. And I did get a few Krakens, and it does make the Hayate hilarious. I was at like, I don't know, 10 or 12k HP with Yamamoto proc. Then I fought a full HP Smoland, and he just got murdered because I had like the same reload as him, but with an extra gun and much higher HE alpha. So it's niche, but it's hilarious when it works.
Yeah. But again, I mean, just as not a complaint about Hayate but it's like, come on, IGN, possibly the largest tech tree in the game, or close to it, or for a long time, I think it was the largest. It's got every line, and you get exactly one. I mean, even look, the little Pan Asian with just one little destroyer line as of right now. I know they got something more. They have 2, right? The Wong brothers, right? They have 2 special captains. Soviets who, did not have, before they even had battleships, I think it was just cruisers and destroyers, had like 7 or something. All the brothers and the Kuznetsov and all the Ovechkins, you get quite a few Americans. There's like even you get like the Pan-European one has one or more, and still I don't know if the people listening at Wargaming headquarters take note. I mean, come on, we need some special. It is still just one, right? Did they sneak some more in?
They might have actually put some in the armory. Let me check.
I'm actually looking at my logbook. I think that's where these would be stored.
Yeah, Suzuki. It actually does. The Takeo Suzuki does give improved survivability expert. But I would still probably run Yamamoto over him on that. Yeah, it's a premium, so yeah. I would still run Yamamoto over him.
I see it in here. I do have him. But again, okay, so you got 2. Or you have 3. Do they have Rouse? Is my argument falling apart here? The bottom line is not nearly as many cool captains as the other line. So let's have some more with special skills. Anyway, I think we've pretty much talked more about the Hayate than anybody has in the history of time, and probably ever will.
I love it, though. I love it. I love talking Hayate. I really do.
Will we ever see this ship in competitive?
Absolutely not. There's no reason for it to be competitive.
And you brought up so no clan battles, no COTS. That's because to me,
No.
like you look, there's some ships that are only really good in the it's fine to have a ship that only really accelerates in maybe one thing, like I don't know, 1v1, tier 8, right, where you space Tirpitz and Massachusetts, whatever. But Tirpitz kind of, it's a rock paper scissors between Tirpitz, CVs, and Massa. But anyway, it just seems to me a ship, it needs to have at least some potential to fill a role. And you even started this off by saying it's not as good a destroyer as some other destroyers.
No, definitely not.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It's not a better destroyer or even among the best destroyers in randoms, in comps of any format, with CV, without CV, maybe not even in ranked. So let's say you want to get through ranked as fast as possible. You wouldn't take this. Let's say you want to have the highest possible win rate in rams. Wouldn't take this. Let's say you're playing COTS. Wouldn't take this. Let's say you're playing clan battles. You wouldn't take this. So that to me is, I think, the problem. Or I don't know, maybe you would bring this to randoms. This is a good way to farm, get through ranked as fast as possible.
I wouldn't play it in rank, no.
So there's nothing where if you were concerned about winning, you would actually bring this ship. That's what I mean is it needs something to be good at least one of the game modes.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it buff. Don't get me wrong.
What would be the buff? What would be the buff that gets you to consider this either a win rate farmer in randoms, a star saver or star destroyer in ranked? Bring it into clan battles. Bring it to COTS. What would you modify? So at least in one of those things is the ship you say, yeah, that's actually not a bad choice. Let's load that one up.
Better DPM. If it had a lot better DPM, maybe it's not like let's say it had close to daring levels of DPM. Would it be overpowered? I think the daring is kind of overpowered, but the daring still has a lot more tools than the Hayate, right? So I think that would be fine. I don't think that would break the game or anything.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen, but
I think that it's again because it's such a hybrid ship. Like if you remember the Shima for a while was pretty weak, and then what they did was they took something that it was supposed to have that was designed around and just accentuate that a little bit by reducing the concealment just a little bit, right? And suddenly it was, hey, it's an important ship in the clan battles, right? It's okay because it can do certain things really well, and you see it in a lot of top comps, right? But because the ship is a hybrid, it's not even with you playing it the way you play it. There are other ships that do that better. So I guess that's just the challenge of hybrid. Maybe it would just have to be like a gimmick, like. Maybe the place to make this ship relevant in one of the game modes is to give it a unique upgrade that when it's like, okay, put the unique upgrade, it just kicks butt and it just really works great in rank where it's 7-on-7 without really any team coordination. Like a unique upgrade with and I guess it could just be DPM or something, right? Or
they could also, if they don't want to change any of the hard stats, they could allow you to take smoke and torpedo reload.
In exchange for what?
Nothing. That's just the buff.
Oh,
because you have to choose between smoke or torpedo reload. If you could just take both, like I think the Shiratsuyu used to be able to take both. The Haragumo and Kitakaze can still take both, which is hilarious because
yeah, it's not like they've got
DPM. Yeah,
they've got plenty of other tools. But again, would that make it a winner in any of those game modes for you? I'm not sure.
Probably not.
No, I guess but like it is. It's you sort of look if you think about a ship and you think about I don't know. Do you know what you call those charts that are like it's a graph, but it's sort of a spider web, and the further out it is on each of the axes of the spider web, it's stronger. Like it's like a way of analyzing a ship. Like if
Yes.
what are those called?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about.
It's a circle, and in the middle is and each of the, it's not a circle perfectly. It's more like a octagon. So if there's 5 different attributes, and the further out it is, whatever that's called, I'm sure our listeners are just shouting at their radios or whatever people listen to podcasts on, saying, "This is what it is, you idiots." Regardless, what I'm saying is that, like with any of the other ships, there's typically one of those that's really high, and you just raise it a little bit. But on this ship, none of them are, like, I don't know, maybe you reduce DPM, but you up the torpedo damage to something. I don't know.
I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't like that because, as you said before, if BFK said it or who, but guns are just so much more reliable.
Oh, I got it. Homing torpedoes.
Okay, I don't know about that.
I don't either. I definitely don't either.
I guess just to kind of sum it up of why I like the Hayate and why, like, yeah, it's not competitive. It's not going to be used in any of these modes and whatever. I mean, there's a good amount of ships at tier 10 that aren't used in any of those modes. And I would like it if that wasn't the case, but I mean, there's ships that are just obviously super meta. But people, okay, one ship that I do not understand why people enjoy is the Austin, right? I don't get it. I don't know why people like it. I think it's horrible, but people have fun in it. And I guess that's sort of like me with Hayate.
Yeah.
Although I do think Hayate is I do think Hayate is better than Austin, even though they're different classes.
I agree. I have the Austin as well. I mean, sort of because I just don't have as much time as I wish I could or used to have to play clan battles. I think when I get in, I just play some ranked. And the Austin, I find to be somewhat one-dimensional. But I think that we're kind of giving up the conceit here, and that the Hayate you didn't actually crack the Hayate. It's not a good ship. You're just a really good player, and you figured out how to optimize it, but you didn't figure out, no, this is the secret to playing the Hayate. This is what you need to do. This will make it a good ship. No, you're just a really good player, and you enjoy playing it, but the ship, it's still a dog. I'm sorry. I was really, I had no idea where this conversation. Do you disagree with me, or is that basically what we've come to? Is that you can optimize it. This is the best way that you found to make it work. It's still not the best. It's not really a great ship. It still has a lot of weaknesses, but it's just sort of fun to play. It's, you haven't discovered anything magical that anybody else did, right?
Probably not. I mean, it's not like AFT, no conceal, open water gunboat destroyers is like a new thing. I will say that I don't think it's bad. I mean, I really do think it's more of like a middle of the pack destroyer. Like I would play it. I'll list the ships that I would rather play Hayate over in randoms. And
not just to be clear, not for fun, but because you like on winning. Like it's more winning. Okay, go.
Yeah. Yu Yang, Summers and Gearing, Shimakaze, Howland, Kaba. Kaba's, I don't even count Kaba. It's not even a real ship.
Z52.
Ooh, Z52's close. Z52's close. It's got the hydro gimmick.
Do you play it? Do you play it as a gunboat, or are you one of those torpedo boat guys from back in the day who saw that Flamu video?
No, I don't. Z52 is not one of my favorite ships. I played it recently after they did the buff to 32 millimeter pen.
Yep.
So I would play it as a full gunboat for sure. But that one's close, but probably Z52 if I wanted to win, but I don't even know, man. Like Z52 is weird. Like Z52, if there's a bunch of radar in the game or a CV, like your whole gimmick is just worthless. So
yep, especially with the small ends running around, and
yeah.
Okay, that's fair. You know what? That is fair. It's not, and the way you've explained it, I think, just for random winningness and even potentially, because the issue with ranked is that sometimes you're the only destroyer, and but nonetheless, um, I buy it. Just as a point of reference is that you probably around the game long enough to remember when the first French destroyer came out. It wasn't the tier 6 one. It was like the Fantastique, the tier 8.
The Le Terrible.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. That ship when I first got it, and some of the other pokes that I was playing around with, it was a really tough ship to like figure out. So what I did was I just went to the leaderboard and found the very best player. He was in a clan called MI at the time, and forgive me, I cannot recall his name. I'm not sure if he's still active, but he sort of explained it in a certain way and sent me some replays. And looking at that, it was like, oh wait, that is not how I've ever envisioned a destroyer ever being played before. And when he played it that way, it was just, because the thing is, when they put in like a premium ship before they typically put in a line, that premium ship sometimes has some of those attributes that the eventual line will have. And I think that the Terrible had some of those, being very high speed, very good torpedo angles, and I think just the way the guns worked. And he was just the first one to crack it, and eventually many more people imitated or stumbled onto their own. But that was sort of like an eye-opening. Oh wait, that's how to play it. But in this case, I unfortunately, it's just, we hopefully here's what we come away with is that maybe we didn't completely like crack it open, like, okay, this is the Super Unicom destroyer to play. But I think everybody listening who has the Hayate probably has some new ideas and probably wants to take it out and try and play it a little bit better, when in the past they may have just looked at it as a waste of, was it 2 million free XP?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't drop 2 million free XP unless you're rolling in it. I'll say that.
Okay.
I always tell people that.
Right. Well, I was hoping to come away from this feeling better about my investment in the Hayate. I can't say you helped me feel that way, but I don't feel quite so bad about it. And, maybe the best thing this ship has going for it, and you mentioned this, is the fact that people are going to underestimate you when they see you in it.
It's a sleeper car, It's like you pull up against a nondescript looking Toyota or something, but it's got a super juiced out engine, and he just smokes you off the line. Like that.
Yeah, we'll buy it. And you know what? It's ship parameters may change over time, and maybe this podcast, this segment, will prompt them to maybe give it a little look and just give it a little rethink. And because, I mean, they pay attention, they want it to be fun, and when you compare it, some of the other free XP ships, I mean, back in the day there was Missouri, that was stuff of legend. Even, forget about the credit, it's still a pretty good battleship, just a reliable battle wagon. You get the Musashi. What were some of the other free XP? Oh, that is I like that ship a lot. I always had a great time in it.
Alaska.
That is a tier 10.
Alaska's tier 9. Pretty overpowered, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're missing Friesland and Groningen.
Yeah, solid destroyer, which, I mean, again, that is a totally min-max. I mean, forget torpedoes. We're just guns. We're just guns and a somewhat decent hydro chick and smoke. But it's it's basically one of those destroyers that rarely are you in a destroyer where you actually want to meet a Friesland. And the Friesland typically wants to meet you. So it's a very optimized ship. But then we get the Hayate, and it's like, I just wonder what they were thinking when they put out there, because I feel like when they release a ship, they have an idea about how it will be played optimally, where it will ultimately settle with the player base in a way that's not kind of meh. But I guess they do occasionally release just sort of meh premium meh XP ships.
Usually not at tier 10 though. Like I feel like tier 10, even the kind of the mid premiums have something that stands out. And like,
Yeah, if you look at the premiums for tier 10, I've just sort of got the let me see if I can. I don't know why it's. Well, the tier 10 specials I have, if I'm using this correctly, are, well, now it's Moskva, but it used to not be, but it's still a pretty awesome ship. Stalingrad, which completely rechanged the game, at least especially in the competitive scene for a while. Bourgogne, which is just
very good.
Yeah, a phenomenal ship. Why is my little tool here not working the way I want it to? Yoshino, which you see that in some cuts. Well, I guess if they allowed it, I can't recall, but it's kind of got its thing. Shikishima, which I mean, what it in some ways, sometimes is it just a lesser Yamato or a better Yamato?
It's like a side grade Yamato,
Yeah.
I would say.
It's fun, and then you get like Summers, which I think is. You were not. You actually put your rebuilt Hayate ahead of it, but I mean, again,
for solo, I like the Summers a lot. I have a lot of fun playing the Summers, but torpedo boat, like solo torpedo boats in randoms can be rough, because if you're not in a position to hit a lot of torpedoes, it's hard to influence the match.
Oh, I believe you. I believe you, but I find that at least in certain versions of competitive, particularly COTS, it's pretty strong.
Oh yeah. Oh, in competitive, yeah. In clan battles or COTS, where it's not allowed in COTS anymore, but clan battles, yeah. I mean, there's no reason to take a gearing over a Summers in competitive.
Right.
The Summers is way better.
And you get Puerto Rico, which I think is pretty good in randoms and in rank, because it's like a half a battleship, and it just that AP just wrecks stuff, and it's tough to sit it out, etc. Salem, that's another tier 10 preem.
Always good.
Yeah, solid. It's a DM killer. The anti-DM. Austin, which we both kind of, that is, but again, it's a very polarized ship, right? It's very good at certain things.
It's good every like 1.5 minutes, kind of.
Yeah. What Ohio, which is a default must-have take battleship in competitive now, and I'll go all around in air randoms. The FDR, which overpowered still, or what? You tell me.
Probably the most toxic ship ever added to the game.
Yep.
Including Smolensk.
Well, that
should not be in the game.
That gets us to the next one, Smolensk, which is, I don't know. I feel like even whether it was in clan battles or randoms, etc., I just find it so easy to counter, regardless of what I'm doing. I guess and maybe it's part. I don't know. You have a different take on Smolensk?
I think Smolensk is still extremely overpowered. We've actually been running it in clan battles. I've been playing EU clan battles as well with Alia. They're basically guys that used to be in Rain. If you know about Rain, and
yes, I do.
Running Smolensk. It's pretty overpowered still, even competitive.
And actually, if I recall correctly, Rain is actually a friend of the podcast. Historically, great guys. I don't know how you play. Do you honestly play 32 hours of clan battles a week? Because that's actually awesome, and I wish I could do that.
No, I usually will play like a day or two on EU on the weekends.
Okay. Immelman.
Broken.
Okay. More broken than FDR, or
no? I mean, it's a very, very strong carrier, which, in my opinion, makes it broken.
And we'll see in a future season of clan battles where they will inevitably be back, and I guess Holland will too. Thunderer, that's a pretty dominant. That's pretty strong, right?
Thunder might be a little overpowered as well, even though it got a range nerf.
Yeah, and really. They took away beloved Deadeye, which I think there are some ships that Deadeye just. Deadeye had the wonderful benefit of the better the player you are, the bigger difference it made. And with Thunder, you basically just deleted things off the map. Next up, Marceau. That's a good ship, especially with the way clan battles are now, where you can only, if you want to run 2 of the French DDs, I don't know how common that is, but we used to see the seven just French destroyer comps or something. I think you guys actually used to run that and run it very successfully. Marceau?
Marceau's very good.
It's a good boat. It's got definite role, especially in any kind of. Now, okay, wait. We might find something that's a bigger dog than Hayate in terms of the premium or special ships at 10. That is the Colbert.
Yeah, Colbert's bad.
I really regret wasting it. And I've tried it and I've seen other people try it. It's just missing one thing. And that might be just better speed boost, better base speed, because it's kind of slow when its speed boost isn't running.
It's basically just a worse Smolensk in like every single way. If you took the smoke from the Smolensk and gave it to the Colbert, the Smolensk like still might be better. Like I don't know why Smolensk gets a smoke and Colbert doesn't, because I don't know, boggles my mind.
Yeah, Napoli is pretty good. It's you see.
I love Napoli.
Yep, and that leaves us, at least with the ones I have, and I'm only missing 1 or 2. But Smolin, Ragnar, and Vampire, I think we can all agree those are pretty nifty. Although I guess Vampire, I've heard it called either better or worse daring, right?
Smolin and Ragnar are like the 2 most broken destroyers in the game. They've kind of like destroyed the meta at tier 10. Vampire is like a side grade to daring, basically. Better in some situations, worse than others. I think the only one you didn't get was Druid, and
Plymouth.
Yes. Oh yeah, Plymouth is.
Are we calling Plymouth the dog, the steel dog?
I think it's a dog. Yeah, I think it's a dog.
So disappointing, because I love the Belfast, and yet, I guess Druid. It seems to do really well in ranked when I've seen it. What's your take?
Druid's really strong. It wouldn't ever have a place in like clan battles or COTS, but yeah, in randoms and maybe ranked, I guess it's really good.
Right. So I guess our conclusion is that all those super special tier 10 ships, the Hayate's kind of in the basement with Colbert and Plymouth.
It's like a level above the garbage tier, in my opinion, of like the Colberts and the Plymouths and stuff, but it's not on the level of like, I put it at the same level as like a Yoshino. I think that's a good comparison. The Yoshino doesn't really do anything. Just spamming HE at 20 kilometers.
I get it, but the Yoshino, I think that it's one of those ships where strategy-wise, at least in randoms, the way you make the difference is that you basically carefully manage the ship at range with HE, which it's not like AP. It doesn't quite take its dispersion is good, where you just work stuff down until you get about 2/3 done with the battle, and if you've maintained most of your health, then that's the time where you can sort of make some moves. And the torps are kind of cool too. But you're kind of right though. It does have like really good torps. Or strong torps, right? 20k, a bunch of them, and it's got these pretty strong guns. It's kind of I don't want to call it a hybrid because we don't really have any torpedo cruisers, but I get it. I see where you're coming from. So, wow, this has been a long segment. I'm going to throw 2 questions at you to exit. What's your ship to sink? Okay. Sink any ship in the game.
Asashio.
Now, there are different motivations for sinking a ship. What is your reason?
I hate them.
Oh, okay. So it's like you want to get rid of it because you don't ever want to play against one again.
Correct. If I'm in a battleship and I see an Asashio on the other team, I'm just like, well, I hope I'm not on his side or my game's ruined. Dumb ship.
One-dimensional, I guess. Hey, but yeah. He's got that nifty alpha strike with HE. Maybe
true.
You know what? Here's what I'm going to do: is that you and I are going to co-host. Well, no, it's not. It's not like you think the ship is broken in that it's bad. You think it's just really good at one thing but nothing else. Like maybe the Austin, I guess, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Got it. Got it. Because I was going to say we could just bring the very best of Sashio, and you and I could both interview him together, and I could ask him, well, how do you play it really well? And then you could ask him what horrible things have happened to him in his life that makes him want to play the ship.
Yes.
So solid. I'm not sure we've had a Sashio before. And final, what do you want to plug, man?
Oh, well, you can watch me on Twitch. Synpax said that he'd post my link in the description, and I just started a YouTube video or YouTube channel. I put my first video out. I really like tier lists, so my first video is a ranking of the tier 10 cruisers by tiers, and I want to do it for destroyers and battleships and maybe some other stuff like that. So yeah. All
right. Those will be linked below in the or wherever you find the description. Okay, that was a really great discussion. We touched on a lot of things, and look, thanks for coming by. I'm sure we'll do it again.
Yeah, anytime.
Welcome to the inaugural segment, Weird Premiums. I feel like we need some music for that, like a special Weird Premiums theme song. And I'm here with, man, I've known this guy forever, good old Popcorn from TNG. How's it going, Popcorn?
Doing all right. How are you, Synpax?
Good. You're going to be my guest co-host for this segment. And so the idea is that there's a ton of premiums in this game that are, I think, kind of forgotten. And particularly outside of 9 and 10, and some of them were kind of weird and kind of strange. And I thought, you know what? Let's look into them a little bit, because I know that a lot of folks, a lot of whales out there have them sitting in their port and probably haven't dusted them off at all and don't play them very much. But what we're going to do with this segment is we're going to find probably the best player we can in that ship and have them come on and talk about it, maybe a little bit about the history of that. So we've got a fantastic guest for this Weird Premium segment. He is known as Locked, better known currently as Heavy of the Clan Devastating Strike, aka 07. And just as we bring him in, when you look at strong players, I always look at the solo stats. And in the hood, he has a win rate of 74.19% solo, and average damage of 112k. That's for a tier 7 battleship of any kind. Those are remarkable stats, but that's enough to put him at the top of the North American board for the hood. So welcome to the podcast, Locked.
Yeah, thanks. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, and we appreciate you joining us. So before we get into some of the technical stuff about the ship, the ship has a little bit of history to it. It's quite a famous ship in the annals of naval warfare. Would you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. So Hood was built during World War One. I believe she was the only ship of her class. Pride and joy of the Royal Navy. During the interwar period, she was heavily modernized. And, what people probably best know about it is the fact that she got death struck by the Bismarck in the Denmark Straits during World War II.
Were there any survivors?
I believe there were, was it 3? Most of the ship was most of the crew just went down with the ship, but I believe there was 2 or 3 survivors that were thrown out overboard.
Yeah, I guess they didn't have the right signal.
It's never a good sign when your pride and joy just gets death struck, is it?
Nope.
Yeah, it's World War One technology met World War II, so if you look at Jutland, right, like a lot of British battle cruisers just had ammunition blow up because of their poor design and practices.
Yeah, and
then if you look at Bismarck, the amount of effort it took to sink her, I still think it would have won the fight. It's just I think she got incredibly lucky with those first few shots and managed to detonate the hood.
Yeah, tragic, but that's war. So Wargaming brought this ship in game, and it was kind of it was an odd premium because it was at a time I think that there were already a couple of premiums in the British battleship line at tier 7. I believe that this came out like there was the Nelson for free XP, there was the tech tree ship, the King George, the Duke of York came out as a sort of a Christmas event, and then we also had Hood. So, I mean, do you recall Popcorn when the Hood was initially released?
I do remember vaguely. I remember the rockets, I believe, and the defensive AA was one of the big selling points because that was a really cool gimmick, I guess, was having really cool short range AA that could protect yourself against RTS CVs. And I mean, those are days gone by, but that's what the ship was sold on. So.
Yeah, no, I don't think in the current iteration. I mean, it has okay AA defense, but I don't think it's I mean, the DPM of it is actually less than uh, the other uh, British battleships at that tier right now. But it was just sort of an odd ship, and it was quite different. I don't know. This strip always seemed very different from the other British battleships of that tier. What do you make of that?
Yes, it's not. So it's got a really low number of guns. Like it's 8 guns compared to 9 on the Nelson, and was it 10 on the KGV?
Yeah.
And it's very big, very long, but it's also very fast, which I think really sets it apart at the tier. Because I'm looking at it right now, it'll do like about 36, 35 knots with the speed flag. So
That's
the
right.
ship is incredibly quick.
I actually played it quite a bit. I think there was a ranked sprint or something at tier 7. And I remember that this ship, I just picked it out of the blue because it's very unusual. Um, you could take a flank. It was fast enough, and I also found that its HE was pretty effective,
Yes,
HE
correct.
slinger. And also, this is a little known fact about it, is that it actually has slight, and this is a buff that kind of came late, but it had slightly improved AP angles, and that was an upgrade I think they made to it subsequent to its release. So both it and Duke of York have improved AP, and where if you take the ship out on like a flank, a weaker flank, and you're taking cross shots, it makes it very effective. In terms of being able to hurt cruisers and the guns. I mean, they don't have the best punching power, do they?
No, they really struggle the AP, especially at citadeling battleships, and that's what I recall a lot is you'd get pen damage, but it was really, really hard to land citadels. But like in terms of cruisers, no, this ship I think is fantastic for the tier at nuking same tier cruisers just because they are really, really accurate guns. And I did shoot a lot of HE in it as well, and I think that just reflects on my damage because like when you're either mid tier, fighting tier 8 or bottom tier fighting tier 9, you're better off trying to set some fires on angle targets instead of shooting your AP, which won't do much. Right. Because they are only 15-inch guns.
Popcorn, do you have something to say there? I heard you pipe up.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I was just gonna say how it's interesting that that I guess players that perform really well at the top of the game, they tend to prefer these battleships that are fast and can reliably or maybe semi-reliably punish not just cruisers but any ships with flexible armament like HE and AP. Like the example I was thinking of was like Burgoyne. Not that we're talking about that, but
like a lot of battleships at tier 7 are relatively slow, 25, 27 knots. So the fact that this one can do like 34, 35, it really allows you to get into positions early to either get a good cross shot or just kite, which is what I usually would do with the ship. I would never try to push in because it's still, overmatchable by same tier battleships. So, and the fact that the Hood has phenomenal kiting angles for the guns makes it really, really good at that.
Something else that is a superlative of this ship, particularly at the tier, and actually at quite a few tiers, is that the deck armor is 51 millimeters.
Yes, I remember that's very unique for the ship, and it's noticeable, right? If you're taking HE spam, The only problem with it though is too the superstructure is just so big that you're still gonna take a lot of damage really early, like before you get
Sure.
saturated there. But yes, your deck is like it's you can't get overmatched by other battleships with it. You can just tank HE fairly well. And if you're kiting, I mean, you can use all your guns and then angle away and then turn back and use all your guns.
Right, and
It's
if
really, really good at that.
when you're working a ship at range, a lot of the incoming fire is going to be at the steeper angle that does hit the deck, and even many ships, even if they take IFHE, are not going to
Yes, they
depend
will
that.
not be able to depend that. Yep.
Um,
The ship as well has a massive HP pool for the tier at 67,700,
mhm.
which is essentially tier 8 HP at a tier 7. So that also really helps with it,
Yeah,
staying alive longer.
and you actually mentioned the Bourgogne, which is, I wouldn't call it a weird premium. It's a incredibly popular and fun to play premium that everybody salivates over, which you can only get not with money but with precious, precious steel. But I found that the play style, at least in ranked when it was there, or it possibly even randoms too, it does mirror the way you kind of like to play the Bourgogne, is on a flank, taking advantage of your HE, and just basically being a huge pain in the butt to the enemy team.
I think we've cracked it. Like Hood is just tier 7 Burgone. Everyone should go buy one.
Minus the reload booster, yeah.
Minus the reload boost. We can skip over that. It's okay. It's the exact same boat. Just go get a Hood.
Yep. And I'll just add, Royal Navy is known for its repair. It does have that pretty solid. Am I not mistaken? I believe it has the same pretty solid repair, except it just has a little bit longer of a reload time. That's the only drawback compared to, say, the KGV and the Duke of York. Not as good as the Nelson, of course.
Yeah, I can look at that right now actually, but I believe you are correct. Where's my KGV?
Is that a Montana-esque heal? Where it's like it heals a little bit more, but reloads longer.
I'm trying to dig
I
that.
believe it's. I don't know if it has the quirky heal where it heals more Citadel damage or something, but
I don't believe
I
so.
think
I don't believe so.
I think it's just a standard heal for the battleship is just because of its HP pool. It's it scales, so you can actually heal a significant chunk compared to like a KGV or a Duke of York. But I'm looking at the cooldown. It is a longer cooldown. You are right. It's 57 on KGV and it's like 76 on the Hood.
Yeah.
I guess. Sorry.
No, I was going to say it also does have like slightly above average HP per second, which I think is pretty standard for the British one. So it's over 406 per second. And that's without, I guess you're not going to be taking survivability expert on a battleship, especially this one, but that is a strength of it. So look, like I know that you'd play the ship several Captain Reworks ago, but what build would you recommend, Locke, if you're going to take this thing out, start from scratch, and try to put yourself back at the top of the leaderboard?
So probably definitely Gunfeeder or Expert Loader, because you will be switching from ammo consistently in the ship.
And is that an unusual choice for a battleship for you?
I don't think so. I think a lot of battleships that don't have overmatching potential should take it and sling HE because, I mean, it's HE. It's overall, if you set a fire and force a DCP or something, it's more effective than
sure,
trying to sling AP, at a heavily angled target, which will either bounce or just miss or overpen damage on the superstructure.
Okay.
I would take priority target, but that's just my personal preference. It's not necessary.
It's not really a personal preference. I find it to be a religious preference in this game.
Yeah. It mostly allows you to know, for me, especially if you're being torped, because if you know what you're doing and you pay attention to the mini map, and if you look at who's aiming at you and who isn't, you could take an educated guess as to when you're getting torpedoed. So
right. Well, look,
correct.
We don't have we have a lot of our audience. They know everything about the game, but some folks are on the still learning. Why don't you explain the how the priority target can be used to detect the moments that you're being torped. Explain how that mechanic works.
Well, so let's say you have your priority target is saying, 4 ships are aiming at you. If you just take a casual glance at the ships in your firing range and see where their guns are and where they aren't, you can take an educated guess as to, hey, there's probably a destroyer out here that's launching torps. And that's something you could also look at the minimap and determine, hey, there's going to be a DD here, like that's probably going to be unspotted. So it just allows you to take a guess and like a more educated guess than trying to randomly guess as to, hey, am I being torped right now or not?
Right.
So,
well, this comes from a defect in many destroyer players in that they by default keep the gun selected, and if the gun's locked on you, then it increases.
And that's another thing. Yes. So if they switch from guns to torps, the priority target will go down. So from 4 it'll jump to 3. So you would probably, once again know that, like, hey, he probably switched to his torpedo launchers.
Right. So
like, and smart destroyer players will keep their torps on, and then it kind of becomes redundant. But still, a lot of DDs are gonna have their guns selected on you before they ever torps. So.
Right. And to be clear, the priority target only counts the number of ships that have their main battery guns pointed at you, not the number that have their torpedoes selected at you with the the predictor.
Yes, it's just main battery guns.
So we interrupted you in the midst of this captain build. Why don't you take? So we'll start again. Gun feeder, priority target.
Priority target. Adrenaline rush is a must, I believe, for most ships. It's just free DPM.
Yep.
Concealment expert, I think it's required, especially because Hood's concealment's kind of trash for the tier at 14.1 max. Emergency repair, probably for that extra heal. Now, I believe that leaves me with 7 points. So I run Furious. Now, that's mostly because I share this captain with a Conqueror. So in order to save myself from respeccing, I just keep it on. But basically what it does is reduce your main battery reload time by 5% if you have 1 fire on you, and it'll stack. So if you have 2 fires, it should release it by 10, I believe. But I could be wrong. I'm mistaken. If I am,
it's for each. It is for each.
Yes, it is for each, yes. And it also increases the dispersion of enemy shells. So if you're on fire and you're going to stay spotted, it's just more DPM. And then I run Brisk mostly just to get early games like position. It's 2 points. I really have no room to spare on my current captain since he's only 20 points instead of 21. But that extra 10% of speed really is going to let you get like an early spot in the game that you could use to your advantage in shooting a cruiser or something.
Okay, interesting.
And then if you have a 21-point build, I'd probably take Brisk off for something else. But I really don't know what 3-point skill I would take.
Did you call Grease the Gears?
Grease the Gears? I did not know. I think Hood actually has a decent. Yeah, it has a decent
cruiser, I believe.
And it's 36 seconds. It's not bad. It's workable for me. So I don't really take Grease the Gears on a ship that has like below 40 seconds turret traverse unless I really think I need it. But yeah, you could probably take Brisk off, take Grease the Gears, and then probably just preventative maintenance. Or if you want to go all 3 points into like basics of survivability, you could do that as well.
Wait, but wouldn't that cut into your Furious?
Into what?
Into your you take Furious, right? Or you don't take it?
No, I do, but I still have like.
You take basics of survivability over, I guess improved repair party.
Yeah, so you would take it over Brisk, so you would have 3 points that you could put into basics of survivability. I just don't have that 21-point captain yet, so.
Well, I'm just wondering because if you're taking Furious, right, you kind of want to be on fire, and you don't want to be.
But you also don't want to be on fire for too long. That's another thing I think a lot of DBs could mess up on, is just burning too long and end up dying. You just gotta know when to manage DCPs. But once again, I just share a captain with Conqueror, and on Conqueror you really don't care. So more ideally, maybe you could probably trade out Furious for I don't even know. Let's see, probably fire prevention.
Well, I would say Furious is probably the highest skill ceiling skill up there.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Because you're Yeah.
Yes, you're taking it for DPM, but you also have to be careful and not die for that DPM. So
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I was just thinking because if you,
it's just there's really no other tier 3 skill to take. So like the AA on the ship, unfortunately, isn't what it once was known for. So
I
yeah,
I would go for more. And again, I've got Cunningham, so I think I
yes, I also have Cunningham, and I think that's hilariously important for leaderboarding any British
yes.
battleship, because you get 2 kills, you get an extra heal, and if you get Wither, you'll get more reload, like by another 10%.
Which is
So
great in an HE
like this ship will have some nutty reload if you get all that active.
Right. I
Yes.
myself went with actually I need to read I just by default I took Grease the Gears, maybe I don't. But I would go with consumable specialist because that is a Cunningham bonus. Um emergency repair just because it's 21 captain having where else to throw it. Grease the Gears, I am of the religion of priority target. Adrenaline rush, and then more traditional ones, emergency repair expert, concealment, and fire prevention expert. Although I guess you could take off fire prevention expert and go with Furious.
Yes, but you that's one of those high skill ceilings. You have to basically know your management of DCPs extremely well, and when to go dark and when to like not, and when to heal and stuff, because you're essentially giving the enemy 2 free fires in the middle of your ship every time they fire HE at you.
True, true. That's something like now
So
I'm
yeah,
a little curious
a
about
safer
experimenting
play.
it.
Yeah, a safer play would just be taking off Furious for fire prevention and then trading Brisk, and then with that 21 points going for basics and kind of go a tank build instead, which would
Yeah.
also work. But you know, DPM is DPM, so
I guess here's another question to kind of move on from the captain skills. Would you say it's balanced?
the ship.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. I don't think the ship is at all overpowered. I don't think it ever was. Its real gimmick of AA was changed. So like with the carrier rework, so it no longer has the insane short range that it once did. But it's a fast battleship that has decent armor, really high health, and I think its weakest point are its guns, just because they are Warspite guns on a tier 7, so you're really starting to lack that punch with the AP on broadside battleships. It's hard to get citadels, and the HE, I mean, it's okay, but I don't think it's the best at the tier by any means.
And unlike
And the reload of 30 seconds, it's really long. So
and unlike Warspite, which actually had reasonably good accuracy for its tier, these are the same guns as on all the other British battleships, right?
yes.
Oh no, I'm mistaken.
No, they have the same act. Their problem really is Warspite at tier 6 had more ships it could just overmatch and gank compared to tier 7. Like at tier 7, if you run into tier 8, your guns are essentially useless against any BP.
But it does
AP
in fact have better accuracy than the other three. I stand corrected.
Yes.
It does.
Yes. Yes.
But it also has slower shell time slightly than the others too. So
it does, but they have if I recall correctly, they don't have that much drag, so they keep their speed consistently across the range. So it's not difficult to aim, and for the tier, I still think it's one of the more accurate battleships. Now, things like Florida completely outclass it, I think, but just in terms of the ship itself, I think it's a well-balanced battle cruiser that can be really fun. It just has a little high of a skill ceiling in order to make work. It can easily get citadeled if you go broadside, so you don't want to do that. It's a very big ship, so it's nearly impossible to dodge. Spam. It's poor concealment, means you can't really abuse it like the other battleships from Britain can, like KGV, for example.
Right. So I'm just going to run through each. Would you think the ship would perform really well in, say, tier 7 ranked?
It could, yes, but I guess the only problem is things like Synop, right? That just smash the button, press W. Like, it's really hard for this ship to deal with them because it has really good armor. you can't really overmatch the ship, and its DCPs mean you can't really effectively burn it. But yeah, no, it can be all right. I never played it in ranked because I don't remember the last time there was a tier 7 ranked, but I think it'll be all right.
Yeah, and I think again,
Its guns are going to be the most lacking bit though, especially against other battleships.
Would you consider it a good random battle tier? Like, let's say you got somebody that's trying to power their way through a tier 7 destroyer, you're in a div with them, wins matter. Would Hood be a ship you reach for in that case?
Yes, if you're top tier, absolutely. But I think the ship is beginning to show its age, and that it will struggle, like when it's mid or bottom tiered against tier 8 and 9. And I got really lucky when I played it. I spent a lot of my games, in tier 7, where your guns could still overmatch things like Nagato and Colorado. They would still, punch the cruisers really hard, and the HE was still worth it. But as you hit the tier 8 and stuff, like you just have to really be careful as to what fight you pick, because you can easily just get killed in a 1v1 against another battleship.
Its concealment's not the greatest either. It's 14-1, right?
Yeah, it's 14-1, and for comparison, KGV without a captain on it is also 14-1. So KGV will get it down to like 12-7, I believe. So KGV can really abuse its concealment to the max.
What would you say if Wargame, if they're like, maybe we need to reevaluate the ship? What would you say one thing that they could do to maybe reduce the suffering from power creep?
I mean, honestly, I would like to see them reintroduce the gimmick. It had a really absurd AA, but it would be kind of redundant because there are no tier 7 carriers in the game. So you'd either play against tier 6 or tier 8. So maybe just buff the pen on the guns, in all honesty. Probably like a small buff to that, so you could more comfortably get through a battleship's armor and citadel at range. Because otherwise you really have to go brawling for that to happen.
Okay, cool. Popcorn, do you have any exit questions for our guest?
Should I buy it?
Great question.
As I said, well, so my opinion of buying ships, right? Like, you either buy it for, because you're a ship nerd and the historical significance, or you buy it because it's going to be an efficient, grinder of credits and free XP. So, like, would I get it over perhaps some of the other tier 7 premium battleships? No. But if you, get it in a free crate, or if you just want it for the fact, that it's a really famous ship, then I don't see why not.
Well, your criteria is interesting, because either because you want it as a port queen, or because it's going to help you grind credits. It's fun to play. Does that rate?
This is one of those rare ships with port queen where I would make an exception, just because it's a real ship. It's really famous. I think it looks fantastic. The model is really great, but like, if you're gonna spend money on a product, like, I guess it's up to you. But for me, it's it's either historical significance or just a very efficient credit / free XP grinder.
Fair enough.
Which is why I would which is why I own premiums. I wouldn't buy them just because it's a premium. So I look and see what the ship's good at, what the ship's bad at, its statistics.
Fair enough. That's the answer that would not surprise me, coming from a competitive player at the extreme pointy end of a clan that wins Kings of the Seas, wins clan battle seasons, and just is generally, probably one of the perennial top 2 clans on this server. So with that, I want to thank you a lot for joining us, and
no problem.
of course thank Popcorn for being my guest co-host for this segment. So thanks a lot.
Problem.
Yeah. No, thanks for having us.
I want to thank you all for joining us for the 90th episode of the Get to Know World of Warships podcast. Obviously, like many things, they evolve and they change as time goes by, and thanks for bearing with myself and the great team that has kept this podcast alive, Bogsy and Borla, and the other folks that were guests and helped
help make it a success so that there was something still going strong for when I decided to pick it up, and for you to continue to listening. Also special thanks to Miss Bree for doing a lot of the wonderful audio work, and we're going to get her to record some new segment intros for us, which I really look forward to. I also want to thank Raimu, the composer of much of the beautiful lo-fi music that will, I think, now grace our program and help break our segments up. So I want to encourage you to continue to subscribe, to listen, to hit the like button, depending on whether or not that option is available where you are listening to this and finding this fine podcast. Also, if you have any suggestions for ideas for segments or ways we can do segments better, send me an email, synpax@hotmail.com. And I appreciate your patience getting a few of these things back in order, figure out again how to level audio so it doesn't sound like we're actually in one of those dreaded submarines that Wargaming has put into the game. Will take a little bit of time, but we'll get it all together once I get my sea legs again. And I hope to again, have as frequent guests some of the folks that have made this podcast so successful in my absence, specifically Boggsy and Borla. So again, thank you for continuing to listen. I look forward to getting us to 100 episodes and to continue to going strong and producing what I think is, for a long time has been, and I'd like to continue to say, is the best World of Warships podcast there is. So thank you for all of that, and we'll be talking to you again real soon.